The Atlanta Falcons are in one of the most interesting situations in all of football for a few reasons. They have a Hall of Fame receiver in Julio Jones, a former MVP quarterback in Matt Ryan, and a budding star in receiver Calvin Ridley. They finished 5th in passing yards in 2020, which shouldn't come as a huge surprise to anybody because they do move the football with relative ease nearly every game. Unfortunately for this team, defense was a huge issue in 2020, and it is a huge reason why they are constantly getting mocked on Twitter, why they are drafting with the 4th overall pick, why they fired Dan Quinn mid-season last year, and why they are coming off of a 4-win season for the first time in nearly a decade. This has been a series for draft guides, and it continues in today's video with the Atlanta Falcons, and there has been several requests to do a video on them, so now today is your day, Falcons fans, and I certainly hope you enjoy. But before we get started, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do, and it would be very much appreciated. And now, without further ado, here is the Atlanta Falcons draft guide. So we have to start today with this. As everyone knows, the first 2 picks of the draft are set in stone, and they are of course Trevor Lawrence going to the Jags and Zach Wilson going to the Jets. I have been very vocal about the 49ers' 3rd pick and who they select. I personally think they should select Justin Fields, but the reality is every sign, and I mean every sign, is pointing to them taking Mac Jones. Quite honestly, I think it's baffling as to give up this much draft capital for Mac Jones, but what I want to say is this. Before I say this though, please know I am just relaying information and don't have me as Adam Schefter's personal assistant, alright? Now I'm relaying what is being said. When Adam Schefter, Daniel Jeremiah, Chris Sims, who is boys with Kyle Shanahan by the way, Mel Kiper, and Matt Miller are all saying the pick at number 3 will be Mac Jones, I don't have any choice but to believe them when they're saying this. There is not a circle amongst those 5 or 6 people saying, oh yeah, let's just fool everyone for the next 2 weeks to then make everyone mad because we know now the 49ers are selecting someone not named Mac Jones. No, that's not the case. The 49ers could announce who the pick is because Trevor and Zach are the first 2 picks, so it really does not matter what the 49ers do at number 3. There is no downfall to them announcing their selection. Obviously with the NFL rules they can't do that, but Kyle could leak it to Chris Sims, aka one of his boys. And with all of those heavily credentialed guys that are miles and miles above myself, by the way, are saying Mac is the pick, he is the pick as of now 2 weeks before the draft. So in a sense now the draft starts at number 4 overall with Atlanta. Now prior to the 2020 season starting, we said the draft starts at 2 because of Trevor Lawrence, which at the time was true. Then it was the draft starts at 3 because of the rise of Zach Wilson. And now with all of this coming out, at number 4 Atlanta starts. So what do? Do they take Justin Fields, a great quarterback prospect and a caliber of prospect at quarterback that Atlanta may not have the chance to get? I don't want to say again, but not for a few years, and probably not under this new head coach and new GM's regime. Point being is it's going to be a while, and while Matt Ryan has been a great quarterback and leader for this team and city, at some point you have to look into the future and see what you'd have, as Matt Ryan probably will not be the answer 5 years from now, where Justin Fields very easily could be. Now Atlanta is in the driver's seat here, as they can trade out, as surely somebody will want to trade up to get Fields or Lance. All they need is one team to trade a lot for that pick, and with how Fields is regarded, surely someone will and someone would. Who at this point is a good question, but you can make inferences and guess teams like Denver, New England, or Washington being the top 3. One of those teams I am positive loves Justin Fields and would do anything to get him to be their guy, and if not Fields, then Lance. And for that reason, Atlanta could set themselves up nice for the future with picks and give their new GM a lot to work with over the next 4 to 5 years. Now, I don't think Atlanta will come out of this draft and be better than Tampa no matter what. No matter how good of a draft they have, and unless something crazy happens, I do not see any way they're going to be the 2021 division champions with how the Bucs played at the end of last season. There is far too much of a gap between these teams at this point in time, which is something I hope Falcons fans themselves can acknowledge. So with this selection, if I were the Falcons, I would personally take Justin Fields, but I do think they will trade out of this pick and acquire at least 1, if not more, first-round picks down the road. So projecting this said trade, I do think Atlanta would move back to 9 to trade with Denver, and I do think Denver would give up pick 9, obviously, and a 2022 first. There could be more involved, but I do think generally this is what the guidelines are, pretty much what the trade would revolve around. So having said this, Denver gets Justin Fields, Cincy takes Penny Sewell, Miami gets Jamar Chase, Detroit gets Kyle Pitts, Carolina gets Rashawn Slater, which leaves Atlanta with the potential to get the best defensive player in the entire draft. I wouldn't mind them beefing up on the offensive line, but I do not think the value is there at pick 9, so they could go Micah Parsons or a corner, whichever they think is higher on their boards. They could go Parsons, Surtain, or JC Horn, whose draft stock has risen a good bit in the past few weeks. I also think they need a running back, and while Najee Harris will be a good NFL running back, the value at 9 overall is not here. If they do this trade with the Broncos and end up selecting at 9, there is a good chance they get the best defensive player on the board, even with trading down and acquiring an extra first-round pick. Denver gets their franchise quarterback, and Atlanta gets arguably the best defensive player in the draft in Micah Parsons. A win-win for both teams. So we have to take a look at all of Atlanta's picks they have in the 2021 draft, and they have 9 picks, with 1 in each of the first 4 rounds, 3 in round 5, and 2 in round 6. This leaves a lot of room for trading and maneuvering around, especially on day 2 and day 3 of the NFL draft. I do think they will address the QB position at least once, and as you guys just saw, that does not mean it has to be in the first round. Remember, Matt Ryan is going to be 36 in May, so a developmental quarterback, aka someone like Kyle Trask or Kellen Mond, would not be the worst thing in the world, and the situation if they draft one of those guys would be worlds different than if they draft someone like Trey Lance or Justin Fields. It wouldn't be the most ideal to develop. What we would think at this point in time would be roughly 3 years or so until Matt Ryan retires, but the good news that would come out of drafting either of these guys is you can usually tell what a player has on either the practice field or preseason games, which these guys would have. So spending a 3rd round pick on a player like this would be a good investment, because if it works out, awesome. You have a franchise quarterback in the post-Matt Ryan era, and if it doesn't, well, I hate to sound like this, but surely one of the 5 QBs drafted in the first round will be a bust, as of the odds of all of them becoming stars is incredibly low, and this selection of Atlanta's would be forgotten about. And not only would this selection be forgotten about, but this draft would be remembered by taking a multiple-time Pro Bowl linebacker in Penn State's Micah Parsons. Atlanta's draft priority should be, I don't want to say exactly the same as the Panthers in 2020, as they went defense with every pick, and while the Falcons would benefit from that, that is a little extreme. But their priority should be defense with the 1st and 2nd pick at minimum, and at some point draft a backup quarterback. Pass rush is 100% a need with this team, and it really is a shame for them that Chase Young couldn't have been born 365 days later, because there is a good chance they could have drafted him at 4. Now, maybe Miami never makes the trade because they themselves would want him, but anyways, it does genuinely suck for Atlanta that for the first time in years, there are no premier pass rushers in this class, and we're going back in chronological order here, like a Chase Young, like a Nick Bosa, like a Bradley Chubb or Myles Garrett. That does suck for them, but they can still get a solid prospect in the 2nd round in someone like Carlos Basham Jr. out of Wake Forest, or again, whichever best defensive player is available. There is an outside chance if they do trade with Denver that they pick up an additional 3 or additional 4 from them in the said trade. So if Atlanta would want to move up from 35 to the back of round 1 and get a 5th-year option, whichever player they like to move back up. And this could honestly be for a player like Najee Harris if they choose to do so, and here's why. Najee will be a good NFL running back. He's an animal and will be a workhorse in the NFL. Now, Matt Ryan's career is winding down, and we all know it. That's no secret. And what's also not a secret is not every quarterback will be Tom Brady and play until they're 43 or 44 years old. So Falcons fans, I hope you guys know this, but you don't have 8 years left with Matt Ryan. That's just not going to happen. So if they invest a 1st-round pick now in Najee Harris and have him for 5 years, and possibly franchise him for a 6th, or work out a long-term deal, this would be the next quarterback's best friend. So Falcons fans, whether you like, love, or hate Najee Harris because he did play for Alabama, and a lot of Falcons fans are UGA fans, remember, this guy could be your next quarterback's best friend and be a critical piece in reassembling the Atlanta Falcons. So I did say they should primarily draft defense with the first 2 picks, and they should, but they are scheduled to pick at number 35 overall right now in the 2nd round, and what I want to make clear is if there is a player like Najee Harris or Travis Etienne, for example, who is, and we'll say lightly here, the 24th or 25th best player in the class, they should take him over the best defensive player available if that said player is ranked, and again we say this lightly, the 40th best player in the class. If Atlanta walks out of this draft with Micah Parsons at 9, a player like Carlos Basham or corner Greg Newsome with their 2nd pick, and an extra 1st in 2022, then you'd have to think they'd come out of the draft as winners. These would be great pieces to build around, and if this is indeed how the Falcons draft goes, then I 100% will be making a video right after the draft, calling them winners and how they are set up for future success. As for every team, I do think they should target an offensive lineman or 2 late, because it never hurts to have depth back there, as you would never, and I mean never, hear an organization say, yeah man, we're good, we have too much O-line depth here. And the same thing goes with secondary for that matter. I absolutely love targeting DBs and O-line late because a lot of the time they don't work out, and if they do, then you find a gem and a diamond in the rough. Anyways, Atlanta is in an interesting position moving forward, largely due to the QB situation, but they have to 100% address the defensive side of the ball in the draft and do so early and often. If Atlanta drafts right over the next 2 years, they can set themselves up for not only success to build upon in the next year or two, but set themselves up to have a top 4 or 5 defense in the league in what we expect to be the post-Tom Brady era. And in a division that will soon have, really, who knows at quarterback in New Orleans, who knows in Tampa, and potentially Sam Darnold or who knows in Carolina, they can be multiple-time division champions in the mid-20s by killing it in the next 2 drafts. And you start by getting to the postseason with winning your division. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world. We are closing in on 25,000 subscribers, and I cannot say how much I truly appreciate the support. Please follow me on Twitter and TikTok for all football analysis content. The link is in the description. And as we always end videos, love you guys. Deuces. Peace.